Good evening. You're watching The Smoking Section with Steve Helfer, and tonight I'm very pleased to have Catherine White on. Good evening, Catherine,
Good evening, Steve.
and thank you for coming all the way from, I think it is Lexington, right?
Yes, thank you for asking me.
And what does it take, about 20 minutes drive?
Depending on traffic, 20 minutes to an hour, but tonight was closer to the 20 minutes.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And Catherine and I met at a talk given by Charles Murray, who I guess is a libertarian. Would you say? Yes, he's a
Yes,
libertarian.
yes.
And I think he's with the American Enterprise
American
Institute.
Enterprise Institute, yes.
And Catherine was in attendance, and we started talking. And she hosts a website called The Constitution Decoded, I think. And that's not like the Da Vinci Code.
No, just
It's not as
Constitution
exciting
decoded.
as that, as the
No,
Da Vinci
not as exciting as the Da Vinci Code.
And in addition to that, Catherine makes her living, I believe, doing people's taxes.
Saving people from the IRS one form at a time.
It sounds good to me. Now, tell me a little bit about your website, for example, how long you've had it, what its principal purpose is.
I've been teaching the U.S. Constitution for about 8 years now. The website is about a year younger than that. And it started from a book club with a few friends and somehow took on a life of its own. And I have a monthly study group that has up to 4 dozen people attending.
That's really nice.
I've given talks all over eastern and central Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire. I've been on panels with the State Department and with a contingent from the Netherlands, and spoken at rallies and civic events, and lectured in colleges and taught in schools. It actually is the law in the state of Massachusetts that the Constitution must be taught in the public schools.
Is that right? Really?
During the week, 1 week a year, during the week that includes Constitution Day, which is September 17th. And almost no school system actually holds to that.
But let me ask you a question then. Do you think there would be some form of litigation that you could bring? Vis-a-vis the schools aren't doing what they're supposed to do by the Constitution?
Well, anytime you say litigation, there's the first question is who has the money?
Well, I don't know if you remember it or not, but the reason I ask this is something that I have pondered for a long time and really not done anything about. But there was a young fellow who sued the state of Massachusetts regarding Romney Care. He was being fined for not having Romney Care. He sued the state. He did everything by himself. He was not a highly educated person. I think he was intelligent. And he got, I don't know how far he got, but he did get publicity. And I went to his court case down at I think it was at the federal courthouse, although I don't know, this was a state matter, so I don't know why it's there. But, I mean, he went a long way with just filing a $50, I guess you would call it a claim or something like that.
Well, I'm more interested in working with the schools and school systems that are interested.
Oh, really?
And letting it
Wow,
spread.
that sounds like a good
There are a few that really drag their heels, and you know, somebody who's an expert to come in and give a talk to your school for free, and they don't want it. So
they need to have diversity training.
They need to have a little bit of diversity training, indeed. But there's plenty of schools that are very interested.
Is
and
that right?
I have enough of a tight schedule that the school systems that won't let me in to speak, that's their loss.
Okay, so you're not looking for more ways to spend your time.
I am not.
at this point.
I have a tax practice that keeps me busy more than full time.
Well, let me ask you.
I have, and the Constitution work keeps me busy full time. So there's two full time jobs plus, and then in theory I have a life. Somewhere in
Okay.
there.
Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights, I think our main point is that that minority of the population who smoke, which is roughly about 18% of adults now, are being bullied by the government. And not only are we being bullied by the government, but the government is deliberately trying to foment dislike and fear of smokers. It's what's, and we feel that this is highly unethical, really bad for the body politic. And just an example, let me give you a very quick example. I'd be interested in what you believe on this. But the government, are the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is running these advertisements on television where you see somebody smoking in one apartment, and then there's kind of, the smoke is kind of drifting through the wall, and it's enveloping a child or an elderly person. Even some government websites are saying the smoke comes out of the faucets into the next door. So it seems like they're trying to create what is sometimes referred to as a moral panic against people who smoke. Do you think we're accurate on this, or do you think we're being paranoid?
I don't think that you're being paranoid. I have not seen the ads that you mentioned, but I did go to MIT. That's like completely against all the rules of science. Smoke does not go through a pipe full of water to sneak into the apartment next door. It does not go through walls and insulation and another layer of wall. It's just that's just nonsense. But it underscores why we need to study the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, because that's like a prime example of government going way beyond its proper bounds. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inherent, inseparable, unalienable, unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and property. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and whenever any form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right and the duty of the people to alter or to abolish. So if the purpose of government is to secure, protect, and hold inviolate the rights given to us by our Creator, not by government, not by a government document, but by our Creator, how does that translate into the privilege of being able to frighten normal people into thinking that they must impinge on the right of their neighbors to live their lives as they see fit?
Well, the government, says first of all that this is scientific fact, that, their studies done usually by paid for with government grants to usually what I think are rather malleable scientists show that there is no safe level of secondhand smoke exposure. So for example, if I am smoking on one end of the block and there is some kind of microparticle of secondhand smoke that might touch the end of your nose, that this is dangerous for you. So they say it's their duty to protect the majority of the people from us smokers and our secondhand smoke. And then in addition, they say that we are raising the medical costs for non-smokers, and they have to pay for us. So this is another way to create anger against smoking and against smokers.
The principles in here get so intertwined so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That you really need to go back to the very basics. So what is a right and what is a privilege, right? Your rights are inherent and unalienable, given to you by your Creator. So they're built in, they're part of you. Right to life, because without your life you have nothing.
Yes.
Liberty, to live your life in accordance with your own desires and principles and wants. limited only that you will not impinge on the rights of others to live their lives as they wish. And property, because all rights derive from property, starting with the first piece of property you ever own on the day you're born, your body.
Yes.
Because if you may not control what happens to your body, you are a slave.
Mm-hmm. Right, definitely.
So this is different from a privilege, which is something granted by a government or by a person. You know, you want to get to the bus stop, you want to cut through my yard, we're friends, fine, no problem. And then one day I'm looking out the back window and I'm in a foul mood and I see you, you know, step in my flower bed and I yell out the window, hey, go around.
Yes.
I have just revoked the privilege.
Right.
And now you
Okay.
have to go around. My property, my rules.
Derived from property.
All
Right.
rights derive from property. So then you get into, if you are an adult person and you wish to smoke, it's your life, your liberty, your property, both in terms of the pack of cigarettes and your own person, and your choice as to what to do with your person, your health. If you want to, you know, supposedly endanger your health by smoking, as opposed to endangering your health by bungee jumping, or endangering your health by driving too fast on the highway, that is your right.
But now, for example,
And it is not the proper business of the government to step in and try to legislate morality, legislate dislike and distrust of you on the part of others. In terms of enclosed spaces that are for the public, like restaurants or things like that, there may be at the state level some responsibility to adjudicate where may and where
well,
may
let me
not.
ask you about that
But
public
in terms
accommodation.
but in terms of your own residence,
Yes, right.
no, there is no state privilege. There is no federal privilege to come in and say you can't smoke in your own home.
Well,
that is what Jefferson and Madison and Hamilton all termed a usurpation of power not granted, and therefore null and void.
Okay, next week, a week from Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow, the Boston Public
Happy
Health...
Thanksgiving.
Thank you, and the same to you.
Thank you.
We have much to give thanks for, right?
Yes, we do.
Next Thursday, there will be a hearing before the Boston Public Health Commission because Boston is proposing to ban the sale of tobacco and electronic cigarettes to persons under the age of 21. So they're revoking the right of people between the ages of 18 through 20 to purchase cigarettes. Do you think that is a usurpation of almost of their adulthood?
The way the law the common law, the common understanding of law stands is once you are a legal adult able to enter into legally binding contracts, at that point the state has no say in what you do with your life as long as you abide by the civil law.
Right.
Under that, there can be reasons for the state to step in. You know, for example, somebody under the age of 18 cannot like go out and rent an apartment. They're not old enough
To enter into a contract.
to enter into a contract. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on television, so I don't know where that line is in Massachusetts law.
Well, I think
Whether it's 18 or 21.
No, it's 18.
It is 18.
Oh yeah, for a contract or, for example,
I mean, certainly you can join the armed forces. You can
have an abortion without your parents' permission.
can do that
You
at
can
12.
marry. Oh, well, definitely at 18, you are the age of majority. However, they're trying to change that, and in Boston, and they say they're doing it because, well, because people between 18 and 20 buy cigarettes and they give them to people that are younger. That's what their claim is. But
Well, they could also claim that people who are 50 buy cigarettes and give it to people who are younger. That's one of the nuts on the face of it non-arguments that is commonly used. If if I buy something that is legal for me to buy, it is my duty not to then turn around and sell it to someone who, for good legal reasons, should not
Right.
have it. Right? And it doesn't matter whether I'm 18, 19, or 93. So,
Yes, it's a violation of the law.
It's a specious argument.
Right. No, but the one thing that is disappointing to me in Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights is that at this hearing, which is being reasonably published, occurred on the front page of the Boston Globe, I am not anticipating that there will be a lot of people who might consider themselves libertarians or constitutionalists or in any way opposed to nanny government who will be at this hearing. Whereas I think the other side, my guess is, will be very highly organized. A lot of grant-funded activists, grants from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, etc., will be there, and that they will have children there,
Well,
demanding that the age be raised to 21.
That's one of the problems of libertarians in general, is that you can't get them to agree on anything, right? No,
Yes.
Even if they agree, they disagree just on principle. Whereas the people who support the nanny state are very coordinated and very well funded. But see, this is one of the things. Article 4 of the Constitution says it shall guarantee to every state a republican form of government, and republican does not mean political party. It means republic, which is not a democracy.
Right.
The word democracy does not occur in the Declaration
So what
of
is a
Independence or
republic? I don't understand
the
that
republic
yet.
is based on laws that no majority vote may overturn. Democracy, if you get half plus one, you overturn any law,
Right.
up to and including the law to take your life from you. Republic says no. The steps to be followed if you think somebody's life should be forfeit is trial by jury, their own peers,
Right.
advice of counsel, overwhelming
So basically, a
evidence,
republic
etc.
is a constitutional democracy. Is that correct?
No, a republic is a form of government where the basic principles of the common law may not be overturned by majority vote, and in a constitutional republic, those basic laws are written, unlike Britain that has an unwritten constitution.
Yes. Well, it must. Yes. Okay. I'm not sure I completely understand that. Do you want to run that by me again?
Okay.
A democracy means a majority, means absolute rule of the majority. Is that
Absolute
correct?
rule of the majority. A perfect example of a democracy in action is a lynch mob,
Yes. Okay.
a riot. Okay, that is democracy in action. Franklin said it was two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner.
I see. Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
In a republic, if the rules of the republic are that sheep are not allowed for dinner, the wolves can vote to have sheep for dinner all they want. The sheep is not going to
Okay.
be on
What
the
stands in the way of them having the sheep for dinner? Is it the Constitution or is it the common law?
plate. It's both, because they work together.
Yes.
Okay? But what really stops them is the rule of law.
As opposed to perfect democracy.
As opposed to perfect democracy, or the rule of man, which is one definition of tyranny. If a man, a small set of men, a subset of men, whoever's in power at the time, if they get to decide which rules are enforced, which rules are not, basically what you have is an incipient tyranny. Because one of the things, all men are created equal, right? One of those equalities is equal under the law. So whether you're prince or pauper, whether you have friends in powerful places or nobody will talk to you, you get treated equally by the law. And to have a subset of people who determine which laws will and will not be enforced against who or who not,
Right.
That is not the rule of law, that is the rule of man.
Well, now back to taxes.
Back to taxes.
Back to taxes. For example, we had a ballot initiative petition to remove the sales tax from tobacco products. This was run by Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights and Brennan Smoke Shop, a very active operator of those shops. Because right now, the excise tax on a package of cigarettes in Massachusetts is $5.12, and the sales tax is an additional 6.25%, which is calculated on, among other things.
It's on the embedded taxes.
Right. So, do you think in this way this somehow violates any kind of constitutional principle? For example, a tax on a tax?
It actually does not violate a constitutional principle, but what it does do is it goes again into the area of trying to make scapegoats, trying to legislate opinion, trying to legislate morality.
Yeah.
And it's always presented as protecting health, protecting children, protecting people from themselves, but it always ends up with doing the opposite of what is intended. You know, if you have so much taxation on a pack of cigarettes that someone can't afford to go to the doctor when they are
Which
ill.
is actually happening,
Which
because
is
cigarette
actually
smokers tend to be lower income than the rest of the American population.
So the very people that they claim to want to help are the ones that they are hurting, which is what happens every time government outgrows its proper function, which is to secure the rights of the people.
Do you think, so then you would disagree with the idea of using taxes to modify public behavior?
Absolutely, because it time and time again, it's proven that it does not work.
Well, what happens if it did work? Would it be still a violation of principle?
It still would be a violation of principle, but in addition to it being a violation of principle, in practical terms, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
What happened with the big example is prohibition. They passed the 18th Amendment to prohibit the sale of alcohol, and we are still paying a high societal toll for that error, even though prohibition was reversed. It was repealed with the 21st Amendment, 18 and 21, the drinking ages. That's how you remember those two.
Thank you, yeah.
But the point was people were spending their money and getting drunk and causing, general traffic hazards and stumbling around in the streets or whatever. It was to protect people. So what happened was we got speakeasies, we got organized crime. That was the big start of organized crime in this country. And every single city in this country still has a problem with organized crime that goes straight back to prohibition and protecting people from drinking. But it didn't stop any drinking.
It probably didn't. Now, one thing that you did not, that I didn't even think of, and you brought in some papers, forms that tobacco merchants have to fill out. And, can you talk a little bit about that? Because in addition to them having to charge their customers that 6.25% sales tax at the point of purchase and all the excise taxes, they also have to fill. What is all this?
Oh, well, the excise taxes on tobacco products are taxes that are levied when the store that wants to sell them brings it in. So, for example, if you were selling CDs, when you buy the CDs from the distributor, right? You don't pay a tax on that, right? You collect it from the people who buy your CDs, and then you send it to the state at the end of the month.
That's the excise tax.
That's a sales tax. The excise
sales tax, yes.
The excise tax, when you get your tobacco stock in, you pay the tax then. So in addition to the cost of the tobacco, cigarettes, cigars, smokeless tobacco, chewing tobacco, you pay the excise tax right then and there.
And is it the retailer who pays the excise tax?
Well, ultimately, it's always the customer.
Right, but did the retailer actually, my friend Paul McDonald, who runs one of the great retail stores in Massachusetts, Levitt and Pierce Tobacco Shop in Harvard Square, so when he gets his cigarettes from the wholesaler or the distributor, then he has to pay the excise tax to the federal government, to the state and federal
To the
government.
state government and to the federal government. And then every month he has to have the non-stamper cigarette excise tax return, the resident stamper's monthly tax stamp and cigarette return with detailed pages. All of these have subschedules that need to be filled out. Sales to agencies, cigarettes transferred from Massachusetts to another state, physical inventory of cigarettes, stampers' reporting schedule on sales by
So in other words,
non-participating
we're
manufacturers.
ending soon, Catherine. You have so much to say and it's so great, but unfortunately we only have 27 minutes. So basically, Paul
All of
McDonald is
these.
being enslaved in addition to paying all this money. Thanks
Yes.
for being on the smoking section.
You are very